Hey, everybody, and welcome to Sell Yeah, the 8-Fig podcast segment that features interviews with a wide array of our valued partners and sometimes seller customers to spread the good word about what they're doing to bring value to the e-commerce space and make for a better ecosystem for us all. I am your host, as always, Sam Bell. I'm also the partnerships manager with 8-Fig. So again, I appreciate you tuning in to hear more about our esteemed partners like Hamza. Before we begin, just one request of our listeners. If you're enjoying the podcast and you think others might also enjoy the podcast, feel free to leave us a rating and review wherever you listen, and this will help others to discover the podcast and learn more about our partners. So again, thank you for tuning in. All right, let's get started. So we have a really, really cool guest with an awesome name for his agency. I'm sure we're going to hear a little bit more about it. I'm really excited to introduce Hamza Amor with Fussy Penguins. Hamza, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sam.
Of course. I'm excited to dig in a little bit further. But before we do so, I'll give a quick intro of Hamza, and then I'm sure we're going to hear the rest from him. But anyway, Hamza Amor is the CEO and founder of Fussy Penguins. Hamza is also a former VP of consulting for over close to 600 IT consultants within the U.S. He oversaw hiring, boot camp training, and field deployment of these consultants. His passion for e-commerce began in 2008 selling imported goods. And in 2019, although he created a successful business on Amazon, he found out that several fellow sellers in the Amazon community struggled immensely and found freelancers to be unreliable, while the price tag of these agencies was also out of reach. This inspired him to create the first full-service task management company dedicated to Amazon and Shopify sellers, offering an affordable and reliable alternative for e-commerce entrepreneurs. What an awesome company. And an even cooler name, right? Fussy Penguins, right? It's just fun. It's fun. It's not something you see every day. So maybe, before we dig in, what was the origin of the name? And maybe just more background on the agency as well, and kind of, what led you down this path.
So honestly, it was three things. One is penguins are cute, right? Everybody likes penguins. There's nobody that doesn't like penguins, right? Number two, I picked that name because I didn't want to be just another, AMZ agency top. It's just I wanted something that stood out, and if you hear it, you'll remember it. And three, I just like the resilience of penguins. Like penguins, they live in like the harshest environments. They kind of thrive, in some of the harshest environments. They live as a community, and they're just cool creatures. So I thought, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right. Who doesn't enjoy a good penguin? They're a lot of fun. Okay, great. And more on the business itself, within the agency. So you got your start, in e-commerce, selling your own goods and then launching an Amazon business, right? And were there some pivotal moments in there where you realized like, hey, I need to step away from this and just help the Amazon community to solve some of these issues through a different agency?
Yeah. I think there was a point where I got in my life where I was ready for, to do something else. Yeah. And I saw the struggle that a lot of sellers were having. So I thought, why not combine, my experience in providing service as a consultant with what I've learned in Amazon. So that's how the idea came about. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to provide, one of the first options that I thought was, doing virtual assistants. But the problem with virtual assistants is that the cost can add up as well, right? Yeah. So as you're adding each individual virtual assistant, perhaps one to manage your catalog, one to do graphic design, one to do video editing, like the cost can add up. And the problem is for a lot of brands on Amazon, they don't necessarily have full-time work for their virtual assistants. Like that's one of the struggles that people have. They'll hire, 2 or 3 virtual assistants. And let's say, for a couple of weeks, they're revamping all their listings. So they're using a copywriter virtual assistants. But then the following 2 weeks, they may want to revamp their images, as an example, or they may want to do video editing. So I thought about, this option where, the person doesn't necessarily, or the client doesn't necessarily have to hire and train people to do specific things, where all they have to worry about is what is it that they need for their business and just delegate that task to us. And then we take care of it. We have the right experts that that are focused on just doing that one thing. So we have, people that just do copywriting, people that just do PPC, people that just do video editing. So it's one predictable, fee that you pay per month, but you can assign a diverse, set of tasks to us. So.
Gotcha. So you guys run pretty much the full gamut, right? Any sort of problem you have in your Amazon store, somebody could come to Fussy Penguins and say, I need help with this.
Exactly. So it's everything, on catalog, variations, seller support. We even tackle things like product sourcing, prototyping. So we have a team that works China time, basically. So they do our sourcing, basically. They do sourcing for our clients, finding new products, finding new suppliers. We also have a team that handles logistics, so freight forwarding, 3PL, team that handles marketing. So everything that has to do with, newsletters, SMS, these creating chatbots. So every team kind of specializes in a set of things. And then, our clients basically just have to, go into Slack. That's how they communicate with us. And they just say, this is what I want you guys to work on next. And that's the task next. And then we just kind of, we just prioritize the tasks and they just see work just happen. So they don't have to worry about, doing tutorials and dealing with seller support or, dealing with freelancers. Fiverr, Upwork is just one place, where you can delegate everything that you need done. So.
That's awesome. I feel like, this would be for somebody who hasn't sold on Amazon, but, has a little bit of experience in e-commerce, right? I feel like this is something that's almost invaluable, right? There's so many issues that could plague a business on Amazon, like poor, product imaging, poor, copywriting and things like that they might not even know about. Are there any times where somebody might approach you and just say, hey, I just in general need help growing my sales. Could you take a look at the store and see if you have any ideas or anything like that? Is that something that comes across your plate?
Yeah, actually. So we do have, that's our second half of our business is actually the full store management. So that's kind of the agency model where we're focused on growth. So we set, target metrics, target KPIs, and we work towards those goals. So that one is more of a traditional model. And then the task management model is the one where the client just says, they just delegate the tasks to us and then we take care of them for the clients.
Gotcha. So there's multiple layers in terms of services that they can
exactly.
They can access. Okay.
Yeah. Basically two layers. So, the full store management has, a consulting aspect of it, to it, where we basically lay out a strategy. That one is custom based on where the client is and what their goals are. So we just customize, a growth plan for them. And then the task management is more of the client is the boss and we're the doers, basically. They just tell us what they need done, whether it's creating videos, A+ content, brand story, everything basically that you can think of. We take care of it for them.
That's awesome. And can you work with everyone, or do you guys have a specific client that works well for you, specifically any certain sizes or anything like that?
Yeah, we work with clients that are, from clients that are just starting out all the way to 8 figures.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you run the full gamut there. I mean, you guys are really full service. That's amazing.
Yes.
You have any, speaking of clients and kind of who you guys are helping, you have any interesting case studies that, or client stories, for example, that showcase kind of how you stepped in, helped them with management of their account and helped them reach a new milestone or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. We had one client that actually joined us when we just started operating. So we're actually a fairly new company. We've been operating for about 13 months now.
Nice.
Yeah, so we had one client that joined us in January of last year, and they were just plagued with issues in Seller Central. They just could not get the listings to go off the ground. Every time they made a change to their listing, it was a listing that has a ton of variations, like 32 variations in clothing. And it just, every time they made a change, Amazon just triggered 5 or 6, new issues. So we actually helped them through, all those issues, going back and forth with seller support. We help them research new product, add new products to their Amazon, and Right now, they're doing about 60K a month just organically. So
Wow.
without advertising. So we did an entire organic growth strategy for them. So
Oh,
so
that's
that,
awesome.
yeah, that was one example. They were really exceeded their expectations because they just came to us just to resolve catalog issues, but we kind of implemented an SEO growth strategy to help them grow organically. They're doing great. That brand is gonna do awesome. We
Nice.
had yeah we have also clients that struggled. We had one client that joined us in September of 2023. They joined us because their goal was they just wanted to get a handle on their PPC. One of their struggles was they just wanted to keep ACOS under 40%. So
Okay.
yeah, so the ACOS is advertising cost of sales. It's obviously a big metric for Amazon sellers. So it took us about 2 months to get a handle on it, and we lowered it. We got it to about 29%, and pretty consistently. So that one was a big achievement, because we wanted to prove that we can also handle complex PPC strategies in order to achieve profitable growth. So
Absolutely. And do you feel like product that sellers are selling has an impact on how quickly you can change ACOS or have an impact in their business?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, the thing is, if the product doesn't have good reviews, it's really hard to do anything with it.
Okay.
That's
Gotcha.
where that's like the reviews have to be there, for the strategy to work. I mean, there are certain strategies that you can implement to improve reviews,
Hmm.
but if somebody has below that 4.0, that's kind of the threshold, but that's
Hmm.
when you start to look as not a great product. And if you think about it, when somebody searches for products on Amazon, you're being compared against 50 other products, right? Or 49 other products, right? In that first page. So if you look like you have 3.5 stars on Amazon, that does not really stand out too well. So even if you do the best SEO strategy, the best PPC strategy, it's really hard to overcome that. So
Yeah, I feel like I see that a lot with people who are aspiring to sell on Amazon or grow on Amazon. Right? Is that you got to spend something on PPC. You're not going to show up on the homepage immediately until you optimize kind of
exactly.
your listing and how many reviews and that you're getting and whatnot. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Like, what are some of the most common challenges you see, in the Amazon community for those who are just starting out, right? Maybe they launched a product, maybe it's a pretty cool product, maybe there's not something like it, but they're still facing some challenges out of the get go. Are there some commonalities you see when approached by people like that?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. First thing is, I think there are a lot of people who don't understand the SEO game
Yeah.
in Amazon. There are so many places where you can leverage SEO or the right keywords, but a lot of people don't. And I see this especially from people that either come from Shopify or they don't have experience, with Amazon, where essentially they just copy what they've had before. So, and I can see it. I just looking at the listing, it just takes me, 30 seconds. I'm like, they definitely just copied whatever they had in the past and used it. Um, so Amazon is very specific. There are certain elements, within the listing, structure that you can use. Everything from title, bullet points, search terms, description, A+ content. There are so many places that you can add keywords, but not only just keywords, you have to add the right keywords. So there's a strategy that you have to leverage to see, what your competitors are ranking on, and leverage the similar keywords basically within your listing, because that's what drives the traffic. So I think that's the number one mistake that people do. The number two mistake that I see is images or photography. I see a lot of people basically doing the minimum possible. If you look at Amazon, you'll see a lot of listings that just have 2 or 3 images, or they just look like different angles of the product. There's no infographics. There's no lifestyle photography. There's no like feature benefit. So you have to lay those things out, in the images. The way that I like to explain the images is like telling a story about the product, right? Visually, right? Like here's the product, here's what it does for you, here's what it looks like when you're using it, why you should buy our product versus competitors. So you should be able to lay all that out in images. The other thing is, you touched on it a little bit earlier, is advertising. Like you have to use advertising intelligently. Most people just they just pick, exact match keywords, and they just do, exact match campaigns. There are different, different thoughts about how to structure PPC properly, but sometimes, different strategies work for different products, just depending on if the product has multiple buying intents, or, how, the size of the search volume on those keywords. But a lot of people think that they can just, do the minimum basically in PPC. So that's another mistake that I see. So with PPC, you really have to be strategic. Otherwise, you're just going to be burning your money and not getting any results. So, and I guess the the missing link is that the SEO strategy has to kind of go in tandem with the PPC strategy. So if you are, trying to leverage keywords to drive organic rank, you need to kind of feed that traffic through PPC, to be in order to gain that rank. So,
gotcha. Okay,
those are the top 3 mistakes I see.
Yeah, and those are great. And a thought popped in my head when we were talking about imaging, and I'd like to just from an expert hear your thoughts on this. Like when I'm looking on Amazon, maybe I'm shopping for something, whatever the case may be, all the images. Like maybe it's just the product segments I'm looking at, but all the images kind of look the same. You have like, I don't know, for food container, for example, right? This is something I was looking at the other day. Yeah, stack of food containers against a white background. The second one is like opening it, and the third one is like dimensions, and maybe the fourth one is like people using it. Is there any sort of like, and which is great, it's like that's what I'm looking for. It's like, oh, this guy's using it that way. This all right, all is well and fun. But is there any sort of point in time? I'm sure there's a rationale behind why they all look like that, and maybe it's just consumer psychology, like that's exactly what I want to see. But is there any like strategy behind changing it up a little bit, maybe introducing something that looks new and fresh in terms of the imaging that you see on your search results?
So the reason why you see a lot of the images look the same, especially when you're searching on Amazon, is because Amazon restricts what you can do in the main image. Right, so the main image, the first image that you see, has to be on white background. You can't have text. You can't have, so it just has to be the object on plain background. But with that said, there are other techniques or tactics that you can use that Amazon will allow. Like for example, one cool technique that I think works really well is including the package that the product comes in. Because the package a lot of times has text, and it has infographics, and it has additional things that tell the user right away. At the end of the day, 80% of shoppers, shop on their mobile devices, right? So when you're looking at, let's say, Tupperwares, right? You're looking at Tupperwares, and a lot of them are like transparent. So all you see is like this transparent plastic that's stacked. You may not know what it is, right? But if you include, the package as part of the main image, and the package says, for example, 10 stackable microwavable, Tupperwares, then you might immediately, attach to an audience that's looking for microwavable and stackable Tupperwares. So you make it easy for the audience to find you. So that's one way to kind of to stand out.
Gotcha. Okay. I didn't realize, and this is my own naivete, that, I didn't realize that like Amazon required that specific thumbnail picture to be a certain format. Yeah. Makes sense. But now it's also insightful for the remainder of the photos as well, which I think is definitely a way to differentiate yourself.
Yeah.
All right. So we touched on, common mistakes that beginners are making, but, I'd also like to hear, based on your experience, what do those larger sellers, like those 7-figure sellers, what do they have in common when they're, growing their business or are underway on Amazon?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Just from talking to a bunch of sellers and working with a bunch of sellers, I think a lot of the sellers that reach that seven-figure threshold, at least most of them, I would say, these are obviously generalizations. So generally speaking, they sell multiple products, and there are definitely exceptions to this. That same SellerCon that we attended last year, that event that we attended last year, I met one seller there that basically shared with me that he was doing seven figures in sales and Amazon selling one product. And he was kind of, worried and at the same time, hesitant. Like he's like, well, I've already reached the seven figures, and so maybe I don't need to do anything else. But at the same time, he was afraid that if he doesn't do anything else, obviously the competition might overtake him. So, but that's definitely an exception to the rule. But most sellers in the seven figures are always launching. They always have a plan to launch new products, and they're selling multiple products. So that's number one. Number two, speaking of products, which is as part of launching, products that don't work or products that get, terrible reviews, just like we said earlier, and, you just don't see that product, getting the reviews that it needs in order to sell well. A lot of these sellers just, they just either remove the product or go through like a significant improvement from, with the supplier to make sure to address the issues. But yeah, so that's one thing that you can't just keep the product and just hope for the best, right? It's not going to turn around magically. The third thing I would say is that, for a lot of these sellers, they're very intelligent with their time. And I think this is something that people have to go through in order to learn this lesson, which is to hire people for things that they don't like doing or things that they just not very good at. So like if you're not a good graphic designer, a lot of times, a lot of business owners try to do everything themselves. If you're not a very good graphic designer, just hire somebody to do it, right? Or video editing, hire somebody to do it. It saves you time and it allows you to focus on really, what you do best and what's going to move the business forward. So you're not wasting time.
Awesome. That's really insightful. It's often that like I think about, starting out on Amazon, kind of what the hurdles would be, right, for somebody who's pretty nascent to the process. It's not often that I dive in. It's like, okay, once they surpass those and they've built a pretty respectable business, what else are they faced with? So I appreciate your insights. I guess maybe to wrap that all up, in thinking of those two dichotomies is what if you had to give one tip, just one tip, and maybe it could be, we reiterate PPC or something like that. If you had to give one tip to somebody who's starting out in e-commerce, whether that's on Amazon or maybe they're in a D2C platform, and they're just beginning to look for, ways to grow and things like that, what would that tip be?
That's a tough one. One tip, right?
Yeah.
The one tip that I always, I guess, tend to share is that don't give up, basically. So that's the one tip, because everything, every failure that you're going to encounter, whether it's supplier issues, Amazon issues, those are all lessons. Hopefully they're not very costly lessons, but hopefully, those are lessons that will improve, your skill set as an entrepreneur and as an Amazon business owner. So that's, if there's one advice that I would share with sellers, is don't give up. So learn from your mistakes and keep going forward.
Awesome. And that's refreshing to hear, because it's not often we get tips like that. And it's more so like, oh, make sure your product looks like this or that or whatever. And it's like, no, just don't give up. You're going to face challenges and there's going to be plenty of them. Just ride it on through. You're doing the right thing. Exactly. That's awesome, Hamza. It's really been it's been great having you on the podcast to talk a little bit more about Fussy Penguins. One final question. Actually, two final questions. These are quick ones. What is the best way for sellers, like Amazon or Shopify sellers, and maybe even partners to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so they can either connect with me through LinkedIn, just looking up Hamza Amor. Always up for connecting there. Or they can also email contact@fussypenguins.com.
Nice, great. And then the final question is, I know we have some common ground in our hobbies. You practice MMA, I believe. I practice some MMA and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. How's that been going for you? You still training?
So I'm doing mainly Muay Thai right now. So I
Nice.
kind of stepped away from jiu-jitsu just because of injuries, for doing it for so many years. I've actually done it for about 11 years. So
Wow.
I've had all the injuries that you can think of. So yeah, it's just, I have to kind of take it easy. So
That's awesome.
I do Muay Thai basically and kickboxing. So what
That's
about you?
awesome. 11 years in jiu-jitsu, huh? Does that mean you're close to brown belt, black belt? Do you have a rank?
I was actually just a high-ranking blue belt, but I was competition level blue belt, so I was competing a lot. Yeah.
There you go. That's awesome. Anyway, it's been great chatting with you. There you have it, folks. Thank you again, Hamza, so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Of course. And thank you again to everyone listening for tuning in. This is Sell Yeah, the podcast segment ran by 8Fig, where we feature interviews with our valued partners and sellers to spread the good word about what they're doing to bring value to the e-commerce space and make for a better ecosystem for us all. If you'd like to learn more about the sort of partners and providers that 8Fig can introduce you to, or simply how 8Fig can help you fund your supply chain, please visit 8fig.co, where you can reach out to me and our team at howdy@8fig.co for more info. Again, Hamza, I appreciate it. We will be in touch soon. And everyone, go check out Fussy Penguins.